One man, one destination. Everyone is canceled. Late night, hosted by myself, Dylan Randall. This show is an oral artistic dance and is completely fictional. Obey the laws in your country and listen to your doctor. And if your doctor approves, go f*** yourself. Well, Mr. Jay Belsky, is that how I pronounce your name?
Yeah, you can call me Jay Belsky, Jay, Jason, whatever. Easy.
So I saw you on Instagram. I don't know, it was probably over a year ago when you I was pretty early.
It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute for sure.
Yeah. And I'm like, who is this guy? This guy looks awesome. I find out you're a stuntman in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And so I was raised seeing stuntmen as like rock stars. My dad, when he was a kid, used to roll off his roof. His dream as a kid was to be a stuntman.
No way.
I was raised with him always thinking that stuntmen were cool.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
It's a pretty terrifying industry when you see what you guys do. And it was no surprise to me to find out about your military background and just everything you're doing, man. So I just had to interview you. I was very curious on your story. I really appreciate you coming on. So just so everybody knows, you went to college for computer science. You joined the Army at 23 in 2005. You deployed to Kandahar, Afghanistan in 2009.
Yeah.
2011. And then you pursued stunts and film.
Exactly.
You're a musician.
Yeah.
You play multiple instruments.
Yes,
And you spent time in the military training police to basically hold down the fort, which I'm really looking forward to getting into, brother. That's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we did all that stuff. Yeah.
So can we start off? I'm just curious what got you into computer science?
That's a weird. Well, it's not a weird one. So I guess one thing I learned growing up, and it kind of comes from my dad's side. Like my dad was always kind of a hustler, but he said you got to kind of stick with the trends, and technology is something that just never stops. So I've always kind of tinkered with like trinkets and components. I like to build my own computers when I was younger. Like I used to like save up money when I used to work at Safeway just to build my own computer. So computer science seemed like it just made sense to me to kind of go in that direction. And I started learning things like programming. You know, we even did like some web design, things like that, writing code. It's honestly, like at the time, it made sense to me and it was cool. And I found it interesting, but at the same time, like that non-ADD kicked in, and like sitting in front of a computer screen for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, was just not working for me. But yeah, I mean, it was a good area to go into. It served me later on in life because I got into some more technical stuff, just side gigs doing that. But it's kind of that, man. Like it was just getting into a degree that you could, keep with you growing, and it was just kind of multifaceted, and you could go in many different directions. It didn't make sense. You think of like, philosophy degree, cool, but
yeah,
pretty linear. So that's kind of the quick and dirty how I got into computer science, because that feels like a whole other lifetime ago.
It's interesting. It seems like it gives you a really good base to even just be safe in this environment where we were becoming more and more virtual. Just to have an understanding of that seems very valuable to me.
No, absolutely. Like I said, and I actually learned a lot of stuff, and stuff that's so relevant today. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with programs like C++, things like that. We use a lot of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know if it's still something that's widely used, but like the programming aspect was cool. And there's the guys that I was in class with, I definitely like learned a lot from, but it wasn't the environment that I was going to go have a beer with, after class. Like I'd bug up pretty quick, and a lot of these guys would stay an extra hour or two after class. So I'm like, I'm out. So
that's fascinating, man. So was this before the Army?
Oh yeah, man. This was when I was like 18, like right out of school. I was kind of undeclared for like the first year, and then I dove right into that. And I went for it. It was good. I mean, I'm glad I finished it. It wasn't easy, especially with like a personality like me that likes to I like to stay on the move, man. Like move, like physically, mentally, everything. So it was a challenge in that aspect, but it's still it was rewarding for me to actually just finish it. That was like more mental fortitude to like just get it done.
So you got your degree in it. You completed that course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that.
If anything, it sounds like it kind of set you on your path, showing you maybe what you don't want to be doing the rest of your life, but it gave you such an amazing background of knowledge that is always going to be there.
Oh no, for sure. Like it, I knew I was never going to be the 9 to 5 guy. And if I did go into that world, I always thought I would do something more on my own. Like, I guess, that sort of self-employed route, contract wise, things like that. I never wanted to work for a company and for some CEO. I knew that. So, but yeah, you're right. It did kind of give me direction on sort of the area that I don't necessarily want to go.
Right. So there's quite the transition here coming up to go from a degree in computer science to joining the Army and being deployed to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That's pretty hardcore transition, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of segues into it pretty quick. So I finished all that. I was shopping around for, I guess, co-ops, things to kind of get experience in that realm. And I was just like, I kind of woke up one day and I was like, I don't think it just didn't, it was like the beginning of like sort of my young, mature adult life where I was like, I don't know if this is literally what I want to do. And then, the young hot-blooded man inside of me, when things started popping off over in Iraq, I was like, shit, I feel I can't just sit by. I don't know. It wasn't this thing like, I'm not like this warmonger. I don't know. I felt like there were so many things going on at the time where I was like, well, I could be sitting safe in some classroom where I could actually be out doing something, serving my country, things like that. And I have a long history of military. My grandfather's in World War II. He was like a naval commander. My grandfather, my dad's side, was in World War II as an Army, like an ambulance driver. And I don't know. It was just something that was in me. And all that stuff kind of woke it up inside of me even more. And I just kind of went for it. I was like, you know what, if I don't do this now, I'm probably never going to do it. Mm-hmm. And then going more into detail into that, I was originally just going to sign up straight as, just your I shouldn't say typical, but I was going to go in as infantry. And then I thought, well, hey, I already did computer science. And I'm thinking, well, should I go in and get an MOS? An MOS is sort of like your trade within the military. So everyone goes to boot camp, learns how to be a rifleman. You learn how to shoot, do all the soldiering aspect of it. But I also wanted to come out with more of a technical side of it that I could also apply to the civilian world. So I went in as a comms specialist. It's just kind of like a dumbed down version of saying like I set the satellites. I was the guy with the radio on my back, the old sniper bait 6-foot antenna. I'd be in charge of all of our communications for 3 platoons. So it was an intense job. Like I had a lot on my shoulders because if comms went down, comms is essential in a war zone. If you lose comms, shit can go bad real fast. So yeah, man. And it made me better at my job because I had to teach this to whole platoon squads of guys, and half of them would just sleep on it. And the other half that would, actually pick it up would alleviate a lot of that for me because, me running around different vehicles, different OP centers, things like that to try and get the comms up it's not fun. Like it's stressful. It's a good stress, but it's stress nonetheless. So
that's intense.
Yeah.
I saw your gear set up and it didn't look standard from what I've seen in the Army. And just to clarify, this is U.S. Army?
No, this was Canadian. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
We worked. It was kind of all the same thing over there because I'm from Vancouver, so we all worked in conjunction. Like it was with the 57th MP Battalion out of I think they're out of Fort Bragg, I want to say, in North Carolina. But honestly, once you get on the ground, we all just worked together. Like basically, it was a lot of the Canadians and Americans rolled together. We'd have the odd Brit with us and maybe the odd Australian, but it was mainly like American and Canadian in our AO, area of operation. So So yeah, it was like it was good, man. It was great to work with all the dudes, just shoot the shit. And the funny thing was, is we all bitched about the same stuff. It was kind of like right across the board, man. We all like, oh yeah, the same for you, yeah, the same for us. Like, so it was cool. It was cool.
Like
You
there's
just
a lot
broke
of
down.
camaraderie there.
Oh, huge. No,
Yeah.
I honestly met some of the best dudes I've ever met in my life, and you know, dudes and women, I should say, and women too. But a lot of the guys that I kept in touch with, like I see them maybe once a year, if that. But we always keep in touch. We always pick up where we left off, and it's just that it's that kind of, like you said, the camaraderie, that kind of bond that you can only forge in situations like that, because you guys are essentially in the shit together. So, you know, everyone becomes pretty tight knit, you know.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your service, brother.
Oh no, man. Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Your gear looked almost special forces. Did you stay in communications the whole time? Did you work with special forces guys?
We never, like, I personally didn't roll alongside any spec ops guys. We came across them in the field and we knew exactly who they were when we saw them. And they were kind of like, you know, they give the little hang loose. We knew exactly who these dudes were. They got the beards and you're like, oh shit, well, you know, those guys are rolling
That's
deep.
cool.
Yeah. And it was cool. It was cool to come across them. But me and my guys in my unit, we didn't personally roll with them. Would have been cool, probably did some high speed stuff. But no, we were more patrolling in Kandahar city and just kind of staying in that area. It's right downtown, man. Yeah, it's pretty crazy down there.
If you don't mind me asking, did you ever get hit?
There was a lot of TIC. So TIC is an acronym for troops in contact. We got shot at. Honestly, every day it was almost a running joke, because like day one, when you get in the country and you hear that rocket attack alarm go off, everyone's like, all the new guys are like, holy shit, you know. Honestly, after like 3 weeks, a month of that, almost every day, it just becomes like you're just drinking a coffee. You're like, oh, you know, the alarm's going off again. So you become pretty desensitized to a lot of things like that. So the enemy, the Taliban, whatever you want to call them, they're pretty crafty, man. They would set up UXOs, or like, you know, little rockets. Half the time they were old Russian UXOs. So bombs left behind from the Russians like 35 years ago. And they didn't even know if they were still live or not, but they would set them on timers and they would launch them at our base, like sometimes 2-3 times a day.
Dude.
It was like every day there was something was popping off. Honestly, the number one question I get is what was it like there? And the only way I can sum it up as concise and quick as possible is it's literally like the Wild West. Literally, man. Like, it's just, you know, shit's popping off all the time. And that was a busy time too in 2009. It was pretty busy there. So that was kind of quick and dirty.
How did you cope? How do you cope in that stress when you're there, you're with your brothers, you're relying on each other, you're kind of all you have?
Yeah.
You know, you can get hit any day.
Yeah, honestly, it's interesting how the mind works, and everyone copes with it differently. And I didn't know how I was going to deal with it before I got there. You can do all this training. We do this thing called pre-deployment training before you go, and they can put you through a bunch of different scenarios and, you know, all the different, you know, variations of things that can happen, but literally nothing's going to prepare you for it. To be honest, I was pretty friggin' nervous before going. Like, you know, you're excited, you're nervous, you're definitely got a sense of fear there. Like, it's unpredictable. You know, before going to a place like that, all you know is what you see on the news. And, you know, guys are getting taken out left and right, civilian, military, contractors, journalists. So you're like, you know, what you're getting yourself into before going. But to be honest, once I got there, it was like a movie. You get out of the Hercules, the CH, I think it's a CH-130. It's like a big military cargo plane.
Oh yeah.
You know, like four props on it. And the back door opens and you see like the Afghan mountains in Kandahar. And you're like, that's when you know you're like, shit, like this shit is real.
Yeah.
But there was an odd sense of calm once you get there. I don't know how to explain. For me, that was my experience. I was almost like relieved to just get down on the ground. Um, and yeah, man, like after that, like, yeah, I mean, there was times where I literally felt my heart in my throat. When you hear that whistling, that's like danger close. That's like really close when you hear that. So there's a couple of those like, oh shit moments. I was like, that quick flash before your eyes, man. I felt that like twice. But honestly, for the most part, like I tried to keep calm and collected, and I tried to sort of have the foresight of like, okay, what are you going to do when you get home? I tried to kind of project like, oh man, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go finish my dive master, like for my PADI and all that stuff. Like I had all these things I wanted to do. So I kind of just kept my head in the game while also projecting other endeavors I wanted to complete after this deployment. So I don't know. I didn't want to think about the what ifs there. I just like, hey, you go out, you do it, you come back. And I was not a big proponent on writing like letters. I didn't want to write a letter like, hey, if you receive this letter, it means this. I'm kind of superstitious a bit like that. So I just, I'd make a call and keep it really chill, really calm back to, my family. I never really told them exactly what we were doing, and we weren't even allowed to. Like, when you're calling, you've got people like listening in for like keywords that we're not supposed to divulge. Like, my mom, God love her, she was like, oh, how many people are on the base? And they're like, I can't tell you that. And so the conversations would be really, really mundane and kind of boring and frustrating, to be honest. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah, man. But yeah, pretty much that.
So how long were you there doing that with the communications deal?
8 months. 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Okay. It's good little stint. It was crazy because the day we got in, like the first week, they already sent a huge email down to all of us saying, oh, your deployment's getting extended by an extra month. And then we kept getting these along the deployment, like, oh, you're going to have to do it. So it was just kind of a running joke. Like, are we going to be here for like a year? Are we going to be here for like, how long is it going to be? But at that point, when you're in it, we were in it. And I was like, at the 7-month mark, I was like, man, I could do another 4 months easy. Just like at that point, we're just like, let's make the money and just, dude, we're like, let's just run with it. So,
wow. Sounds like you really just kind of came out,
Yeah. I mean, when you're in it, you're in the groove. I mean, in your off time, you're in such a routine. It's like you're just dialed. You're totally dialed. You're ready to rock. Everything is like, I don't know, that term wiretap. We use that. Everything is just wiretap. Everything was just clear and concise. At least for me, you know what I mean? And there was days where I would get maybe like 2 hours of sleep, but I was like, pupils dilated, ready to rock, man. So it was a weird time. It was weird, exciting, and exhausting, totally exhausting, but an experience of a lifetime for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
You move on from there, and then you got into training local police. Is that correct? Was that after that?
So, well, that was our job. So there was an acronym for our unit, which at the time there was, it sounds funny, there was a team called the OMLT teams, OMLT, which is Operational Mentoring Liaison Teams, which were comprised of infantry that were there to, I guess, allow the Afghan army to shadow and to teach them how to essentially be an army. And then our guys, the unit I was with, was technically under military police command, but it was half-half. It was half military police and half infantry. So they were all mixed in together. And so you'd have elements of infantry to kind of dial in the soldiering skills for the Afghan police. And then you'd have the military police to kind of dial in the policing aspect, taking in, detainees or people of interest and processing them and going through the sort of the policing methods and that. So it was quite interesting. We ended up working with a lot of, there was a few there, we worked alongside some of the CIA and then Canadian equivalent called CSIS. And, you know, sometimes we'd be in the room and they'd be essentially interrogating people of interest. And that for me was like some Jason Bourne stuff. You're like bringing in these like high ranking Taliban commanders or suspected Taliban commanders and just hearing them talk about, hearing the translator go back and forth with the operators. And so it was, that stuff was interesting too, but that was essentially our job. So yeah.
That really stuck out to me. It reminded me of what I read about the Green Berets and the CIA. Like you said, the hearts and minds changing the demographics so that they can defend themselves. And that's some powerful stuff, man. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, that was interesting for sure.
Guys, the CIA guys, what was it like the first time you were around those guys? Just intensity?
They were pretty chill, to be honest. Like they were pretty relaxed. One thing I noticed about the outside of the military, you'd have like, you know, not outside, like the spec ops guys, max relax. They don't need to prove anything. They're there. Yeah. They're there for a reason, and they've done it, right? I noticed the other guys, like, you know, the CIA guys, the CSIS guys, they were also pretty chill too. Like they knew their job. They were also super dialed in. They had like a very straightforward format when they brought in guys. They had local, and we typically call them like interpreters or terps, but for this stuff, working with the CIA cats, they had what you would call like, what would we call a cultural advisor. It's basically someone who's originally from Afghanistan that has been, that emigrated to the US or Canada a while ago, like a long time ago. So they're either American or Canadian residents. Okay. But they're brought back as contractors to assist the US and Canadian military as cultural advisors. So not just interpreters, but also have a strong connection back to North America and Afghanistan, where they're originally from. So it was interesting to talk to them. I got to talk to a few of those guys, and really interesting work. Also really dangerous for them too, because, you know, if they're from a certain area and, you know, family names, they're very strong. If you have a family name from a certain village and they come across you, you know, working with the allies, it can be kind of sketchy. So that's why, you know, that big pullout last year in Afghanistan, there was a lot of people left behind that probably didn't serve them very well. So
yeah, that was rough. I was sorry to hear that. You saw the guys to the wheel.
It's sad, man. It's sad because in the airfield there in Kandahar airfield, where you literally had like 100,000 troops staged out of from all around the world, that place was just completely taken over, and you're like, it was sad to see that completely overrun. And so you know, I'm not a politician, but I feel like that could have been dealt with a lot better than that.
Yeah. I sort of raged out about that whole situation. It's one of my most viewed podcasts of all time, because I think a lot of people were feeling angry.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just military. It was like family of military, Afghan nationals that, you know, were lucky enough to get out and immigrate to America or Canada, things like that. So it was just sad to see the country regress to that again. And then, you know, the saddest part for me was when I was there, you'd see like little kids, like, you know, they're like, you know, 8-year-old kids that at that age, all they knew was a life under Allied control, which, you know, you could have two sides of the coin, but it was a lot more stable when we were there, and there was a lot more aid for especially women and children. They felt safer. That from my own experience, and that's what we were told, working with some of the locals, that they felt safer with us there, especially the women and children, like I said. And then fast forward, what was that, 2021 or whatever, 2022? These are like young adults now. And now they're going back to what it was before they were even born. That for me would be terrifying. It's like being a foreigner in your own country again. You're like, wait, now these guys are running the country again. So that was the saddest part for me, man.
Yeah, seeing the Taliban just swarm in like that,
man,
and just the seeing the treatment of their people, how harsh it is.
Brutal, man, brutal.
Such a transition. It was brutal.
Yeah.
So you were there. You were in Kandahar from 2009 to 2011. Is that correct?
No, so I got there in 2000. What was it? September 2009 till May of 2010.
Gotcha.
Yeah, man. It honestly kind of breezed by after like the 5-month mark. I was, like I said, I was like kind of in it. I was just at that point, I was like kind of just cruising. So, yeah.
So what happens after that in your military career? Where did you?
Well, there was two choices. So I have a bunch of buddies that were already in film. And a lot of these guys were in stunts, and a lot of them are all ex-martial artists, or not ex, but like current martial artists, I should say. Mm-hmm. There was two ways I was going to go. I had a couple buddies of mine that I was overseas with that were going to go for special forces selection. They wanted to essentially try out to see if they could even make the cut.
Right on.
So I had two choices. I was like, well, I could go that way. I could go try out for the high speed military life and see if I could even get there. You know, who knows, man, that shit is hard. So not that I don't like a good challenge, but that's a different lifestyle. Did I want that lifestyle? Did I want to, I don't know. I was on the cuff. And then I looked at film. I'm not going to lie. Like, it looks pretty badass. It looks super fun. All my buddies were sending me photos of them on set doing cool shit. I'm like, and I'm not going to lie, the pay was way better in the film side. And I was like, well, shit, I mean, and I get to be home. I don't got to keep, be deployed and live the military life. To be honest, I was kind of done after that deployment. I got a taste for it. I guess essentially I got my fill. I wasn't a guy that was looking to do like deployment after deployment after deployment. I wanted to do a part, and I played my part, and I felt like I did my contribution that I wanted to do. So I felt comfortable moving on from that. So essentially I knew after that contract I think I had a few months left on my contract to ride out before I could fully be discharged. So I just made that decision. I was like, yeah, I'm going to take my honorable discharge and I'm going to go that route. But segueing into the film, it's not easy. And being a new guy getting into stunts, it's already like a very tight-knit community, small community. So I needed to find other ways to make money, because now that military life was done, I was like, well, I can't just go and wait for the phone to ring for someone to call me for stunts, So I had a buddy that I was overseas with that had his own private security company. So he had contracts down in the Caribbean. He might have the odd contract in South America, but I ended up doing a couple contracts down in the Caribbean, down in Barbados specifically. It was cool. It was actually really cool. Pretty chill gig. 2-man teams, month rotations. We had our own, we called a ranch. We had our own house. Each of us had our own vehicle, little outdoor gym. You would have loved the gym, man. It had like a tire, full on CrossFit gym.
Oh man. In the Caribbean.
Yeah, man, down in down in Barbados. So it was a good gig. And it was a nice transition because we still had that sort of military routine. We would switch night to days every other day. Like one guy would do the day, one guy would do night shifts. So we had that regiment, and I'm with one of my bros that I was actually overseas with. So that was cool. It was very nice to kind of not just get out cold. I could kind of still sort of, like I said, segue out of the military while still keeping a bit of that regiment with a guy that I was totally familiar with and that we were on point with, and we could still do the military jargon, all that stuff. So it was a good gig, man. I did a few rotations of that, and then that eventually fully went into film.
So you're doing private security.
Yep.
Is this for like corporations? Is this for
really, really rich expats that wanted some manpower around, essentially? The guy we worked for, I don't even know if I remember what his name. I don't even know if I ever knew his name, to be honest. I basically got a date to go. Yeah, honestly, like even my buddy who ran the show, he was like, you know what, the less you know, the better. This is where you need to be at this time. It was basically a lot of tailing his family, following them around, not being there for them to see us, but always having eyes on.
Wow.
You know, they didn't want us to interfere with their daily life, not because we were annoying, but that wasn't our purpose. We weren't there to interact with them. But even though we would, but there was children involved. There was the ex-wife was involved. So we were basically there just to follow and keep eyes on. And, you know, anytime they weren't at home is when we were on. While they were at home, we would always do our security checks, do our rounds, perimeter, all that stuff every morning, every night. And then anything else in between, if there was something off schedule, one of us would be on it. So that's where we would always be like, you know, oh, okay, I'll do the night shift tonight. Okay, you'll do the morning shift, type things like that. So there was a decent enough amount of downtime as well. So I mean, we were like 5 minutes from the beach. So if you had a day off or like you had like an afternoon, man, you could go for a swim, go for a little dive, go have a couple of little tiny it's this Caribbean beer. It was good, man. It's a good gig.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, man. Did you ever go down, or was it pretty chill?
I was chill. It was max relax. Honestly, before I got there was a couple incidences that it was a little hotter. But when I was there, man, it was chill. Like, you know, when the family would be in like Bridgetown, which is like the capital there, very touristy place. But I'd go to certain areas where I'd be the only guy that looked like me, but I just kind of rolled with it, man. I just kind of chilled. I kind of put myself right in the middle of all these dudes. And, you know, I didn't have any issue, man. I think it's like also there's a certain element, if you carry yourself confidently in areas where you're clearly not from there, you know, they might take you more seriously. I don't know. I mean, I never had an issue. I didn't really feel sketched out, to be honest. I just kind of rolled, did my thing. I stood outside in certain areas where tourists wouldn't go, but I didn't feel threatened, to be honest. And if there was
being an easy target.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, we were definitely dressed. You know, we were wearing like the Under Armour shirts, and we would have like khakis on. You know, we didn't look touristy, but we didn't look local either. So I don't know, maybe there was an element there. But yeah, man, we just kind of carried ourselves. We stuck to ourselves. I didn't get anyone's business. I just did my own thing. And it was easy, man. It was good. It was a good gig.
That's cool, man. I've always thought the private security gig was just cool. You know, you get out of the military, you're in private security, you get to go somewhere badass like the Caribbean.
Can't complain, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, even those dudes overseas, like I met a bunch of those cats in Afghanistan. They make a pretty penny, but it's super dangerous for them. They don't have the support that we would have. I mean, they might, depending on where they are in the AO, but I mean, typically it's not good. They can call in, you know, the Apaches for support. They're on their own. But that's why they also make a lot more money too. But
it's crazy stuff,
man. Dude, totally crazy, man.
Yeah. Totally. Sometimes I read about these Delta guys who they serve for like 20 years and it's like, okay, you'd think they're done. And then they just go into private security. And it just blows my mind.
I think 99% of those private contractors all come from the soft community. There's even a lot of companies that you have to have come from the spec ops community for sure. Like, I don't even know if they would just take regular army. I think you almost have to have spec ops experience. I know some of them, maybe not all of them, but luckily this was my buddy's company, so I had an in there, so it's all right.
So how long did you do that?
I only did that for a few months, to be honest. I was already kind of throwing my name out. I was putting my resume out to stunt coordinators in town, just to kind of get my name on the radar. You know, hey, this is. It was just networking at that point, because at the time it wasn't insanely busy with action-heavy shows in town. So I was just sort of like, hey, this is who I am. This is my experience, yada, yada, yada. So in that time when I first started doing that, when I came back from Afghanistan, I pretty much went at it like week 2, just getting my name out there. And it was crickets for me because I was a new guy. And like I said, it was like all the cats that have already been doing that for years, they're going to get the work. So that's why I started to take these other contracts. But in that time, I would get calls or texts from guys asking if I was available for this day or that day for work back home. And so once that started to happen a little more often while I was away in Barbados, I was like, shit, like I'm missing out on these contracts that, one, I could be making money and getting experience and learning, or not learning, but meeting these coordinators that could potentially be hire me again and again. And so I had to make a decision. Like the private security gig was great and it was awesome. There was nothing negative about it, but I had to be in town if I wanted to get involved and I wanted to pursue stunts and films. So I had to make a call to just be like, basically turn down the private security gig to pursue that here. So I kind of did that. I went pretty hardcore. Like I went pretty intense on it. And the tenacity paid off because I started to get busier and busier. And I got to say, probably, I would say like 2012, maybe mid 2012 is when things kind of popped off for me. I did three feature films in a row. I did Godzilla, I did X-Men Days of Future Past, and then I went on to that Tomorrowland, which is like that Disney movie. And I had considerable amount of work on each film. It was consecutive, which was cool. Because after I finished the X-Men gig, and I went out east to Montreal. They were filming that in Montreal, so I went out there. After that, I was like, oh, well, you had a good run, Jay. Back to the grind. You should probably go look for some other part-time work. And then the coordinator on Tomorrowland, who's Rob Alonzo, he's a big coordinator from LA. He called me up and I was just like mind blown. I was literally doing my forklift course that day just to add stuff to my resume. And I get a call from a huge stunt coordinator. He's like, hey man, you available for this amount of work? And it was like a good amount of work. And I was like, yeah, I'm available. Yes, sir. So that year it really, it put me on the radar for sure. Cause I got to work with a lot of guys, veteran guys.
So the fact that you were able to get such big films right off the bat, my first question is how did that happen? How did you get your break?
Dude, I don't know. I honestly, man, maybe it was a bit, I think there was a lot of luck involved too, because maybe I had a certain look that they needed. Honestly, man, like the Godzilla gig was cool because the coordinator on that was looking for guys. It was military, so we were playing military. And I think having a military background was definitely a plus for them to have me. They had this old Marine veteran on set at all times. He was, I can't remember what his name was, Jim Devers. I think he was from Chicago or something.
Good name.
One of the coolest guys I've ever met. He was hilarious. He was regimented. And once he warmed up to you, he was like a total bro. But having the military background, I think that served me well because they would use me on set to kind of work with some of the other stunt guys that I was working with to kind of like, hey, how would you do this? Or hey, how would you move there? So that was cool. To kind of be put as the point man for that when Jim wasn't around.
So they were asking, you were pretty early on.
Well, that wasn't coordinating. That was me just helping. I was just a stunt performer, but they were asking like to help sort of advise on certain little things if Jim wasn't around or one of the. So I was like, hey, it's not my world, but if you're asking me because of my military background, absolutely. I'm here to like add to it and help out to bring a bit of realism to how you would, move and whatnot.
That's a big deal.
That's actually really cool.
Like, I think that's actually really cool. Like you kind of helped them make the film more believable in a way. I hope so. I mean, I can show guys how to hold a weapon. I can show them how to move. And if they pick it up, great. If they don't, some guys, this is the worst thing. Everyone does the chicken wings in film. When you're holding a weapon, you got to keep it nice and tight. So you'll see a lot of that in film. I don't tell guys to do the chicken wings, but
yeah, it was cool to kind of be asked to kind of, hey, how would you do this? Or if you're moving with like a 6-man squad, who would go where? And so that was actually really cool to have. And then, yeah, I mean, and then going to X-Men, that was just awesome, man. Huge X-Men fan. I was obsessed with that as a kid. The comics, the cartoon.
Yep.
So it was cool to get, if there's a scene in the movie where we get beat up by Mystique and we're all wearing these black berets and I have a mustache. They shaved my head on that show and they made me keep a mustache for 3 weeks. I looked like a complete creeper, but it was a fun show to work on. So if you see this scene, you definitely will see me with a big old caterpillar on my top.
That's cool. I was going to ask you, I'm like, what scene can we look you up on? So that was X-Men. And in Godzilla, what scenes were you in there that we could point?
We were the guys with the whole movie, man. We were the guys carrying around this huge bomb. So there was like a 6 or 7 man team that was with the main actor played by, Taylor Johnson. I don't know if you know who that is. Taylor. He played Kick-Ass. He was the actor playing Kick-Ass in the Kick-Ass movies.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, he's older than that. Not a kid anymore. But we were with him as his team, and we were literally carrying around this huge, massive, like 100-pound bomb the entire time. Like the actual prop was super heavy, and we're carrying this up and around all over the city, like humping this thing up the hills, man. Like it was not easy in that sense, but we, like I said, we had a blast. So that's us. You'll catch glimpses of us for sure. Like if all my friends that know me, I get random texts in the movie, they come up like, "Oh, dude, we saw you in the movie, man. It's super cool." So,
man,
yeah. So you'll. I mean, as the stunt guy, you're kind of like the unsung hero. Like you don't always see us, but sometimes you do. And if you do, it's you'll definitely recognize us for sure.
Yeah, I would imagine that the people getting hit the hardest, hurt the most in film are the stunt guys far and beyond. So it sounds like you sent out resumes and you kind of maybe you got lucky, maybe you had the right look, your military background, it all came together. And you're a talented guy. I've seen your work. I've seen you breaking through glass. I
appreciate that. Yeah.
Athletic dude. And I could see how they would see that, especially the ones who are for it, the coordinators.
Yeah, no, appreciate that.
So once you got your name in the business, was it a little bit easier to get films once you started making contacts, or was it just constantly just working, trying to get in everything super grind kind of deal?
Honestly, the stunt community, and it's pretty much like that across the board. Doesn't matter if you're in Vancouver, LA, New York, Atlanta. Those are pretty much like the top spots for film. It's network, man. Honestly, the one thing I've learned, you could be the most talented guy on the planet. You could probably do like a quadruple cork gymnast or whatever. If you're not likable, if coordinators don't like you, they probably are not going to hire you. It's a lot of relationship based. Like obviously they hire the guys that can do the job. And if there's something really specific, they're going to hire the right guy for sure. But just in the general sense of it, I've heard multiple coordinators say this, talking about guys that they've hired, and it's all about like, who do I as a boss want to be around with for 12 to 14 hours a day?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the amount of skill and talent I've seen in the stunt community is insane. Like I know I've got my own talents, my own skill set, and I'm stoked. I'm like happy with the work I've put in, but man, there are some guys that are just nuts. Like my buddy here, he's a local guy, Alex Kishkovich. He's the double Ryan Reynolds stunt double. He's done all the movies with him since the first Deadpool. The guy is insanely talented. So you see guys like that on set working, and when they do he's an insanely talented tricker, just a tricking alone. He's also like a martial artist. And but we see guys like that work, you're like it's crazy, man. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of relationship based, and you have to have a certain skill set. It's always beneficial to bring something to the table, like martial arts or gymnast, or a lot of guys are a lot of guys come from like a car racing background, motorbike background. There's even guys out in like the Midwest that are like cowboys, that are like expert, coach, what do you call them? The chuck wagon riders, or like bull riders, things like that. So there's people that come from every different aspect. And you know, if there's a big Western movie, they're going to hire all the cowboys. If there's like a big martial arts movie, they're going to hire the guys that can, you know, huck some gnarly kicks and stuff like that. So being as well-rounded and versed as much as you can be is highly beneficial. So I tried to add to my martial arts resume. I got a drift car years ago, and actually down in Willow Springs. I don't know if you know where Willow Springs is. It's just north of Rosemont. You know where Lancaster is?
Yes.
Yes, the tourist capital of California, Lancaster. There's a racetrack up there, and I started drifting there back in 2014. So I got hooked onto drifting, and I ended up buying
that's sick. Okay.
I ended up buying a Nissan 350Z a few years ago and just practicing my drifting as much as I can. So I just wanted to add that to my repertoire of things that I'm not an expert drifter by any means, but it was just something that I wanted to get more comfortable doing, getting more seat time in a car, so I can, Jake can do driving and, you know, things like that. So yeah, man, it's just adding the resume and being real, man, be authentic. That's the one thing. It's like, you know, guys that have been doing film, even just people in general that have been around, they can smell bullshit a mile away. So it's just being authentic and not telling a coordinator you can do the job when you don't have the skill set for that job. That's a career killer right there. So, yeah, man.
So, what are some of your, do you have a favorite film you've ever done?
Favorite film,
or even the top three?
Oh man, I mean, honestly, man, I gotta say, X-Men: Days of Future Past was a fun experience, just because of being such a huge fan of that movie. Getting to work on Deadpool the first Deadpool. I worked on that Deadpool. That was actually really cool to see Ryan Reynolds on set and the suit and all that stuff. That was yeah.
It's cool. Okay.
Yeah. Those were cool. I'm a huge like old school comic book guy. I used to read Wolverine, all that stuff. So it's cool to be on that. I gotta say though, I was never a massive fan of this franchise, but I got to work on Star Trek. What was the last one they did? Star Trek Forever. I can't remember what it was called. Star Trek. The last movie they came out with Chris Pine. I can't remember what it was called, but I got to work on that. And honestly, that was super cool. I got to be, I worked alongside with Chris Pine and another local stunt girl. We were like his like number 1 and 2 security in the show. So that was actually a really cool experience to be on like the bridge of the Enterprise, and, you know, that was actually really dope. And it almost kind of made me a bit of a Star Trek fan, to be honest. So that was actually probably one of the coolest experiences, to be honest. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. You have been in so many. You were in Man of Steel.
Yeah, dude, I was a Kryptonian. I was one of those guys.
Oh, you got to tell me about that. I'm a Superman fan.
No way.
So, okay, what part did you play there?
So I don't think the thing that we shot made the cut. So you remember the beginning of Man of Steel when the Kryptonians are fighting each other, and then I think Kal-El is sending or what's his dad's name? What's the dad's name in it? Superman's father sends him to Earth. You know that whole scene, they're trying to save their son.
Right.
And there's just like, it's like this kind of civil war. There was a scene where me and some other guys, and it was all mocap. So we were wearing the whole gray suit with like the dots on us and stuff. And it was a scene where we were fighting in that whole battle. And then we were basically like doing this kamikaze thing where we had these bombs and we were running towards and just blowing ourselves up and like getting blown up and stuff. I've only seen that movie a couple of times. I don't think that scene actually made the cut. Maybe there's like a DVD or like a behind the scenes thing that shows footage that didn't make it. But regardless, it was still super cool to see Henry Cavill on set in the Superman suit. He was like just jacked too, man. So that was actually super cool. Super jacked in that movie. Cool experience. Yeah. That was awesome.
Looking at your IMDb, do you mind if I just run through a few movies and ask you about them?
Absolutely. Go for it, bro.
Appreciate it. Just so people know, it looks like it was Star Trek Beyond. And
Beyond, I said Forever. What a goof.
Same thing, right? So X-Men Apocalypse, you were in that as well. You were in 2.
Yeah, I did that. I did 3. I actually did that one, and then I did the one after whatever the last one was called, X-Men. I don't want to say forever either, but it was the last one that came out. It just sounds like it works so well with
forever. That's cool.
Yeah. So I did the last 3 X-Men movies. Total blast.
Okay. And what scene were you in Apocalypse?
Apocalypse. Do you remember the scene where those Polish police kill Magneto's daughter by accident, and then he takes off one of their dog tags and it goes through all their necks?
Okay. Yeah.
I was one of those guys. I was one of those guys that gets killed.
That's
pretty
cool,
fun,
man.
Yeah, it's cool.
Deadpool. What'd you do in Deadpool?
There's a scene. It wasn't a huge scene. It was a scene where he's just starting to wear this red cowl. Like, it wasn't the actual Deadpool suit yet, but it was a boxing match kind of in the beginning of the film. And he's just going through people, throwing these guys out of the way. It was a really easy stunt gig. Like, when I say stunt gigs, like, we're on a stunt contract, but some of them are just like, it's going to be an easy day. So it was basically him just like kind of grabbing me by the face and shoving me out of the way. It wasn't anything too crazy, but for me, just to have worked on a Deadpool movie, I was like, that's pretty dope. Like, I was pretty stoked to get on that. So yeah.
I really, man. My girlfriend really wanted to know about this one. We're huge X-File fans, and she's like, he worked on X-Files. We were checking out your IMDb, and we have to know if you can remember what episode you were on. It says 2015.
Okay, I know the scene we were in. There's a scene where Mulder is in a big hangar, and the actor, what's his name? Is it James McHale? Something McHale, I think. The blonde actor in it. He's actually a really funny actor. He's also like does serious stuff. We were in a big hangar. We were all military, and there was a spaceship in this scene, in this Air Force hangar, and we come in these military vehicles, and they made this breakaway wood door, and we basically break through that in trucks.
I know what you're talking about.
There we go. Yeah, that's the scene.
And so what part did you have in that?
I was like in the back of the truck. So when you do something like that, you can't just put like extras in the back of a truck and break through a bunch of like breakaway, like a wood and stuff like that. That's like a stunt thing. So we did that. And then there was, I can't remember the actor, but then I had to do something where I had to like, butt the actor with the butt of my weapon. So the actor was here. I can't remember which actor it was that day. The camera guy is right here. And I always get these like really tricky spots where the camera guy's here with this camera, and I'm supposed to come in like shoulder to shoulder with them in a safe way and swipe lens with my M16 and make it look like I hit the actor in the face. But the camera guy was so close to the actor, and I was like, well, if I hit the actor, I'm like done. That's a career killer there. So I'm like so sketched out. And the coordinator that day, killer. She's super experienced. She's like, she works all over Canada and US, but she was kind of getting on me a bit that day. And I was trying to get the shot, like I was trying to get the angle right and still maintain safety. And it was just, I probably did it like 20 times. My buddy Colby, who's a stunt guy, he was just laughing. He's like, "Oh, you poor bastard. Like, you really got the hot seat there." So, but yeah, I don't know if that even made this. I think it did. I think it shows me come up and butt the actor with my gun. So that was that. I don't know what episode that was though.
For those who want to know, I just looked it up. It's season 10, episode 1, My Struggle. So that was a phenomenal.
Yeah, there you go.
What an episode to be in, man. That was like the first episode they made after being off of air for like 15 years, maybe.
I actually watched that. I never watched X-Files growing up, but I watched that 10th season, and I really liked the first and the last episode. All the ones in between I felt I don't know, it was a bit off. I like the UFO aspect. That's why I was kind of into the first and last one. I was like all into that. So
X-Files is known for doing that. The first and the last episodes, they're cool. They're about aliens. All the ones in the middle, you're like, some of these are cool. Some of them, I'm not sure what they were going for here. But
a bit filler up. I don't know, man. It was a bit odd for me. It wasn't my vibe, but the UFO stuff was super into.
Yeah, dude, you were really in a good episode there. before we move on to another movie, I'm curious about how do you prepare for a scene, man? How do you get yourself in a state where you're going to be in the hot seat and you got tens of thousands of dollars of equipment in front of you, high paid actors? How do you get yourself? Because people have bad days. Sometimes they're not feeling good. There's stuff going on, outside of that world. How do you get it together to be able to perform on such a consistent basis?
It honestly, man, it really depends on the day, and it depends on what your gag is. And when I say gag, what's your specific action of the day? You could have a day where you're literally coming in and, I remember on Arrow, the CW show, I worked countless episodes on that show because they just recycled this so much. Because every episode was just action. You come in for a day, your henchman number 2, you're going to take a CGI arrow to the shoulder and you're going to fall down. Easy. That's an easy day. Then there's other days where, I don't know if are you familiar with what a ratchet is?
No.
A ratchet is, if you ever see in movies where you'll see a guy like fly, if you'll see in a movie, like say, like, for example, like the Hulk punches like a random guy and he'll go flying back into the wall. If that is a practical shot with a real stuntman or a real person in the scene, that performer is hooked up to a system called a ratchet. It's like a winch system that they can control how much pounds per square inch of pressure that's going to pull you out, or pull you up, or pull you forward, whatever. So you're basically at the mercy of this ratchet, this system that is, you're along for the ride. So depending on what you do, like I've done days where you will do something called a full wrap, where they have this tech cord wrapped around you. So when that ratchet gets pulled by the system, you're literally spinning and then flying into the wall or whatever it is you're doing. So yeah, man, anytime you're on a ratchet, those can be really gnarly. They can be really good, or they can be really chaotic. So you'll rehearse that before. You'll do a whole separate day where you'll probably rehearse that all day, and you'll probably do quite a few pulls on that for just the rehearsal, and you're going to feel it because you have no control of it. You're literally along for the ride at that point. And then on the day, when you do that on a rehearsal, you'll be padded up. You'll go into a bunch of pads just so you can feel how the flight's going to be and how it's going to feel. On the actual filming day, dude, you could be doing that to the cement. So you got to know how to pad up correctly. You got to know how to ride a wire. We call it riding a wire. Sometimes you're on a winch system, or sometimes you're getting pulled by like 2 big dudes on a ladder which is just called a hand pull. Yeah, man. So there's days like that where you're going to get rocked. So mentally you have to prepare for that. And that's what the rehearsal's for, to get you kind of dialed. We call it getting dialed in. You get dialed for that. Depends, man. And then honestly, the shit that I get the most nervous for is when they give you like lines to say. So you'll get something like a stunt actor day where you're like, oh, hey, man, hey, we want to audition you. Typically, the coordinator will tell production, instead of hiring an actor and a stunt double, why don't we just use a stunt guy who can act? So a lot of times they'll send us up for these auditions. And there was one gig I had on The Flash, and I had dialogue with the main actor in it. And I had, like, for me, as someone who's not like a theatrically or even I'm not like a trained actor. All the experience I got was on set, but I had like a paragraph of dialogue to say with the main guy. Man, I was sweating bullets, bro. Like, and it was a stunt actor. So after that, he ends up taking us out. I can fall down for days as a stunt guy, but you put me in an acting role and I've got like a bunch of lines or something. I'm like, I get a bit nervous, man. So that's a whole other thing. You're like, oh, don't fuck up. Okay, the director's watching. Don't mess up your lines, bro. Like, okay, don't, you know what I mean? Things like that. So, but honestly, man, every day is different. So the heavier the action, you definitely got to be more dialed on that day. If it's an easy day, you're cruising, man. You're chilling. You can go eat a bunch of spaghetti at lunchtime and not have to worry after lunch. You know what I mean? You'll be good to go. But on a ratchet day, you don't want to eat very much, you know? So yeah, dude, yeah. Just saying.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I'm not sure how much cooler it gets being a stunt
I mean, it
actor.
is cool. It is cool. Yeah.
Having lines, I wasn't aware of that. That's
Mhm.
so the first
Yeah.
time you do that, I'm sure you nailed it then. Did it feel a little bit easier after you kind of broke that ice?
Yeah, honestly, like I'm not a guy. I've never been a guy. Like I'm not a shy person, but I'm not like what do you call it, an extrovert where I desire attention. I'm not a person that desires eyes on me. Um, and so I'm shy in the sense that like even like playing music in front of people, I get nervous, bro. Um, on set, when I have to act, I have to emote, and the camera's like on me. For whatever reason, I can get past that because I'm like, well, this is just work. This is a job. Just do it. You know what I mean? So I don't really have a problem with that. Like I can get into it. I actually get into roles, especially if I don't have to think about like too much dialogue. Even when there is dialogue, I get into it. I get super into it. I mean, there was another episode of Flash, also super random. Uh, I was in. It was a day that I was just like, I kind of wanted the world to just like be quiet. Like I was just not in a great mood. And they sent me a stunt actor audition. I was like, fine, I'll do it. And this was for that gig, by the way, that I'm telling you about. The one where I had all the lines, and I was like, I don't really want to do this, but I just did this like half-assed audition on my iPhone, did a little edit on it, and sent it off. But that gig ended up being a co-starring role for the whole episode, so it was beneficial for me because an episode is like 8 days, and I think it was like 5 or 6 days in that episode. Dude, it was the first time I ever got my own chair on set with my name. It was like, okay, this is a big deal for me. Like it's like, holy shit. Like, okay, you're like up the co-star. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. So it was worth it in the end. But I'm not like I'm a guy that I'd rather just have a regular, like just give me the stunt day. I don't need to go at audition. I'll do it, but I'm all about give me some action, you know?
So it sounds like you sort of discovered this sort of hidden talent through it all, because not a lot of people can do that. You put a camera on them and they
Oh,
freeze.
dude. I mean, honestly, if you asked me that before I got into film, I was like, not a chance, bro. Like, no way. You definitely cut your teeth on set. Like, there's people that can go do acting lessons for years, and they'll have a really good sense of how to act, how to emote. But dude, once you've got like 50 crew members all looking at you, you've got the director and the producers sitting there behind the monitors, and you're like, a lot of those people, I've seen people kind of crack and fudge up their lines a lot because that nervousness gets to them. And I get it. Like, I get that. I've been days where I'm like sweating bullets because I'm like, holy shit, like, don't mess this up. Like, the showrunner's on set today. And, you're like, you don't want to mess up for your boss who hired you, things like that. But yeah, I think the performing aspect over time, it becomes very second nature and it becomes very comfortable. Like, I've become very comfortable um, getting into it, like getting into a certain character, whether it's big or small. The show or the video game, the video game Last of Us.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was out. We worked on that show for 6 weeks.
Dude,
Back
seriously?
in yeah, man. So
A lot of people are looking forward to that show.
bro, dude, I'm one of them, man. So when I got the call to go work on that, we had to do. So we got picked to do. I was never familiar with the game before that, but I got brought up to be one of the clickers. It's like one of the zombies in the game that's like very like twitchy and creepy. So we went out to go work with a movement coach. Goes by the name. His name's Terry Notary. He's like the top movement guy in the world. All the Planet of the Apes movies. He taught all the mocap actors, all of them, how to move like apes. Andy Serkis was one of them. So this guy was like the top dude. I'll send you a photo. He's like a total dude, bro.
Things you would never imagine that is a
Bro.
job, but then you're like, that makes a lot of sense.
Dude, talk about getting out of your comfort zone was that. So we show up and we're doing like 3 weeks of just movement training every day, 5 days a week from like 10 to 5 or whatever every day. And he's like, dude, we'd start the day off doing like meditation. He's very energy based. And then we had to do like the weirdest movement you could possibly put your body through. Like it was just like twitchy and like awkward. But he was like, you got to get out of that. And then in front of everybody, in front of all your peers, be like, okay, show us what you got. You'd be like in a circle and you're in the middle doing all this like crazy, weird clicker, awkward shit, man, that I was like terrified of doing. But even that, like after a week of doing that, we had a whole wave of other stunt people come in to join us for the movement training. And so then we're kind of showing them how to do shit. And so we're not even like, I didn't even feel like, not embarrassed, but I didn't feel like, I didn't feel awkward for anymore. It just became natural. Yeah, man, honestly, because everyone's there doing the same thing. And then when we got on set, man, like, I'll send you some photos. I can't show them on here because I signed an NDA, but I'll show you. But dude, that was an experience alone, man. Probably one of the most physically demanding gigs I've ever done. It took me a good 2 weeks to recover from that. I sustained a couple injuries on that one. Nothing like too bad, but enough to like feel rocked. But man, that was an experience alone, and that was like pure performance based. And movement, a lot of movement, man. And you're wearing full prosthetics. Like, dude, you wouldn't even know it was me. You would literally not know it was me. So
that's got to be cool. Going to the makeup room, having them do all that on you. That seems,
dude, it was wild, man. Totally wild. Yeah.
So I know we're getting to an hour and a half here. I don't want to keep you too long. There's a few things I really wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Speaking of injuries, I've had quite a few surgeries myself. I got metal all up in my body. It's rough. These days, I'm trying to think about how can I stay injury-free while being active? And I said, who better to ask? Man who does this stuff on purpose.
Yeah. Man.
Mobile, how do you stay healthy enough to keep doing these dangerous stunts just years on end?
Honestly, man, and I mean, you're a dude that's in shape. So, I mean, I feel like this would be second nature to you, but dude, I don't stop moving. I literally don't stop moving. Whether I mean, I've been doing Taekwondo for years, and that's kind of like my jam. Like it's my sort of therapy.
Taekwondo, right on,
man. I love it. I love it. Like it's not like the cool martial art like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We got all these they got all these Tom Hardy doing jiu-jitsu, but it's just kind of my thing. And I like to go train with my old Taekwondo master and a bunch of my buddies there, which is cool. Honestly, man, the martial arts, the stretching, which I'm terrible at, but the stretching is key. But honestly, from what I've read and from what I understand, a decent amount of weight training will keep you what was it? The hypertrophy is really good for just keeping the muscles engaged. And I noticed that, like, oh man, I feel like I'm fumbling this one up. Basically, I keep a really good weight regiment going on. I do my martial arts, and I do a lot of rock climbing. I don't know, man. Like, I don't have like a key to doing it. I don't know. I just think to never stop moving, because I feel if you stay stagnant, your body's going to get in that sort of homeostasis mode. And then anything you do outside of that is just going to be like stress on the body. So it's kind of keeping your knife sharp all the time. I don't know, man.
That tells me a few things, actually, man. So you're not just spending all your time in a gym. I think a trap a lot of people get into is they just work out for 1 hour a day, and then they're at a desk job maybe, or they're sitting down to rest. So their muscles get short. They don't have flexibility. The fact that you rock climb and take martial arts, and then you're stretching through all of that, you're getting out there, you're using your body in different ways. You're
absolutely
picking things up and putting them down, you know?
I mean, it's as simple as that. It's not like a science. It's like, and my favorite thing, I hate cardio. I don't like running on it. I can't think of anything more boring than a cardio machine. What I like to do is I like to put on my weight vest. Yeah, the weight vest, and I'll have a point A and a point B that I go to. and I'll just do it. I'll be like, okay, what's a good, I did 8K the other day. I went and had a massage, and you think after massage you want to relax. I was like, no, I'm gonna walk 8K home right now. I took an Uber to my massage and I did an 8K walk in like, we got a dump of snow the other day. So like, 2 feet of snow, but it was, I don't know, man. I just like feels good. I don't know. I just feel like constantly moving and I don't know, dude. It does something. Like my dad's never stopped moving. He's 80 and still a competitive tennis player. Like he's literally competes all the time. So he's a testament to that alone. Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So massages, is that something you do regularly, kind of keeping the tissue?
I try to, yeah. I try to break up. I have a lot of scar tissue in my shoulder. I've dislocated this a couple times. And I mean, it's not like I'm not, it worked for me, but what I did to help recover after that Last of Us gig, because I messed up my shoulder again. I popped my bursa. I'll show you a picture of that. It was a huge bursa. They had to get that drained twice. I did a very low dose of GH directly into my shoulder.
Nice.
Did wonders, man. I had like frozen shoulder last year. Like it was brutally painful. And my shoulder is now, I would say it's a good 85% right now. Back last year, it was like 60. I couldn't do any loads. I couldn't do any sort of push workout, nothing. I did all the tests, like I did blood tests before I even considered doing low doses of GH. But there's a lot of guys I work with that have done cycles on it, and it's done wonders for my injuries and their injuries for that matter too. No, this is actually the first time I dislocated it was in boot camp, like 2004. And then I've since separated it twice in film because it was already kind of weakened. I didn't do anything to it back then. When I dislocated it, I just kind of like, I hit the wall and put it back in, but I was in pain for like a week and I was like a dumb kid at the time. So I didn't get it looked at. So I'm sure there was a lot of scar tissue that built up over time. And then when I got into film, I separated it a couple times, which obviously did not do it any good. So yeah, pretty much.
I've dislocated my shoulder 3 times.
Oh, there you go. So you know what's up. You know exactly. I don't know, man. I'm just saying, yeah.
The GH peptides helped me too. They got
yeah, dude. It was a game changer, and I was honestly, I was not a big proponent on it before. I don't know. I get kind of sketched out on the stuff I read, but once I talked to my doctor about it, and he's like, "Look, let's do the test. Let's do a very low dose. You can inject it locally." And I was like, "Okay." And dude, it did wonders, man. And I even did it. I broke my arm back in, I fractured it, I should say, on another show, working, and that was 2019. And I did a couple injections into there. And when I did my cycle, I also did it into my stomach. But dude, like, did wonders for the residual pain I had in my radial head where I fractured it. So I don't know. It works for me, man. It works.
Yeah,
for me.
I had Dr. Mark Gordon on as my last guest, and he works out of LA. He's been on Joe Rogan a few times. He's
nice.
kind of like the endocrinologist in my book that helps people heal through getting their hormones healthy. And you realize, my goodness, man, just a little bit of help with the hormones, the thing that our body knows how to use.
Absolutely. It's just a little boost your body might need. So yeah.
Yeah. It sucks not being able to use your arm. So I really feel that. I'm glad to hear that you can still work, you know?
Yeah, dude. No, I feel good. I feel pretty good. I can't complain. I feel pretty good.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah, dude.
Well, I got to ask you about one more movie
Go
I
for
saw.
it, brother. Absolutely.
At least, okay. 50 Shades of Grey. I got to hear about your part in that.
Man, I did not see that one coming. So I was not in the bondage room or anything like that, stunt doubling Jamie Dornan, nothing like that. The old ball in the mouth. No, there was a scene in the movie where, do you remember he was flying a glider plane? I don't know I never saw the movie. I
didn't see the movie either. I've just heard about it, so I know some of it through what I've heard.
Well, there's a scene in the movie where he's flying a glider with the girl, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Apparently he's just a man of many talents. But I I came in, they had a fake plane on set. It was like an actual like glider they had on a gimbal setup, like it was just an electronic gimbal, and it was all green screen everywhere. So there's a scene in the movie where he like flies upside down or whatever. Anyways, they just needed a guy to come in and test out the plane, to go test out the gimbal and see how it feels. If there was anything I needed to pass along to the actors, like, oh, this might feel a lot of pressure on your shoulders, and overall the functionality of the plane. So I was just basically brought in for like a rehearsal day to test out the plane with the stunt coordinator to make sure it was safe enough to put the actors in it. So that was really the extent of my experience on 50 Shades of Grey. But that was, yeah, I even forgot about that gig. My God, that was so long ago.
I mean, I'm looking down your list. I'm like, oh, this is, and then I see 50 Shades of Grey. I'm like,
yeah, you're like, what the hell did this guy do in there, man? No, I was not.
That's cool, man. That's a big movie.
That was cool.
I got one more. Cool. So Snowpiercer. I love Snowpiercer.
Oh,
That's a cool movie. I got to know what you did there.
Dude, I worked on a few episodes. I've played everything from one of those jackboots to the tailies. A lot of fight scenes, a lot of fisticuff scenes. And this last season, I doubled. There's a doctor who's got like the big kind of fro-like hair, and he's got glasses. I doubled him for an episode or two. I really didn't do anything on that episode. And then the very last day of shooting, I was like just one of the, I think we were one of the soldiers. I don't want to give anything. Have you seen the last season? No. I don't even know what comes out. So I shouldn't say anything, but I played the soldier because I should remember that. It hasn't come out yet. But I doubled one of the doctors in it, and then I played a soldier in the very last episode for whatever the apex of the whole closure of this show is. But yeah, I played a few different things on that show. It was always fun, and the set was like literally 6 feet wide. So because it's a train, so we were very limited to. We'd have to get creative with the action and how that would go down because it's it's a small set. So yeah,
that's so. Man, I wish people. In fact, I'm encouraging everybody here to check out your IMDb. It's really astounding the amount of films you've been on. It just speaks on your work, man. You're a busy guy, and it's amazing that you're still able to do this after doing this for just so many different films and TV shows. I have two more questions for you.
Yeah, shoot.
For anybody who wants to get into stunt work, if that's their dream, if they're thinking about it, what advice would you impart upon them?
Oh man, that is a big question that everyone asks. How do you get into stunts? I would say definitely, if you don't have a skill set or some sort of talent you think would pertain to stunts, go work on something. As a brand new person, maybe coming in totally green without any skill sets, go learn martial art. Go perfect something, whether it's boxing, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, something, and then build from that. Get it as like even for me, I'm still trying to gain new skills that I can add to my repertoire of things. But I would definitely say martial arts is a huge benefit because a lot of times you can be brought in as an ND, which is we call a nondescript stunt guy, like, henchman number one or thug number two, whatever. Basically, guys can get beat up or get in a bit of a fight. So knowing how to movement is huge. Movement is key. And a lot of people might not think about this, but we actually touched on it, is knowing how to act, emote. You might not be talking, but you don't want to just be like, stone-faced brick over there. You want to, if you're some badass henchman, you want to look like that guy. And network, be around people who are working in film, learn from them, ask a million questions. I feel like people are hesitant to ask questions. Ask a million of them. Coordinators actually appreciate that. Not even just in film, I think just in life in general, but especially in film, if you don't know something, ask, and like I said, just be around people who are actively working in that field and learn from them, absorb as much of it as you possibly can. And like I said, the biggest thing for me is authenticity. Be real. Don't be some badass hero, be a real person, be a, whoever it is, just be real. That's basically how I could sum it up. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I've really learned the value of that, just going through my own growing pains. I think a lot of us hopefully can learn those lessons and continuously learn them myself.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you speaking on that. I think people who want to get into certain fields and they don't know where to start.
It's not easy. Yeah, it's not an easy one, but if you pursue it and you have some tenacity, like I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I wanted to do it. You just got to grind at it, and if you have the skill set and the personality, you can go pretty far, for sure.
Right on. I appreciate that. Last question of the night.
Yeah.
And this is the one that I'm really curious about. From your perspective, what would you, as a stuntman, want the regular world, the regular guy like me, to know about your world? Is there anything that you'd like us to know?
There is, especially when we're talking about action movies, when you look at, like the Avengers movies or anything, whatever, there is so much work that goes in behind that. You might see a fight scene with, like, let's just take the Captain America versus Captain America in that, whichever Avengers movie that was. They probably rehearsed that fight for like 3 weeks to dial that in, just that, for a fight scene that lasted, 30 seconds? I don't know. There's so much planning and coordination that goes in behind that. And we're talking like millions of dollars that go into just that budget for stunts. Guys are getting broken. Women are getting broken doing these scenes. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of moving parts for something that you'll see for a sliver of that movie. And when you see, like, the superhero, the main hero of the movie, doing gnarly fight scenes, not saying every time, but a lot of the time, that's his stunt double making the actor look really good there. And you'll never see that guy's face. Especially the stunt doubles. They shoot the stunt doubles especially so you don't see their face, because that's the actor. The actor needs to have that credit. But and that's why it's still beyond me why there's no Oscar for best stunt. It's beyond me. So that's another thing that's
right. There isn't, is there?
The Academy does not want it for some reason. I have no idea.
That's not right, brother.
Oh, man.
I love that example, the fighting scene, because it's so articulate. You're like,
dude,
it's what makes them look badass. It's like that dude knows
seriously. If I could say two of my favorite fight scenes that everyone will know, it's the Winter Soldier versus Captain America in the Winter Soldier movie. And then one of my all-time favorites is the last Mission Impossible, the bathroom fight scene with Henry Cavill, Tom Cruise, and the other guy who's an actual stunt actor. Probably
really?
One of those, yeah. He's super talented. Probably one of those badass fight scenes I've seen in a long time. Just it wasn't this long drawn out scene, but just the dynamics of each individual character's different fighting style. And you could, Henry Cavill comes as this big bruiser boxer. The stunt actor, I can't remember the actor's name, or the stunt actor guy, I can't remember his name, but he's like just this badass other martial artist. And you've got Tom Cruise with his own style. Just super cool, man. And heavy hitting, like you felt those hits through the screen. I love that. So
you did.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's badass.
I really appreciate that, brother. Real quick, what do you think about Tom Cruise doing all his own stunts?
Love it. Dude, the guy's badass. And I got to say, I just worked on The Flash a couple weeks ago, and I'm throwing his name out there. His name's Chris Gordon. He's a super talented stunt guy. I've been doing it forever. Ex-pro gymnast. He's been Tom Cruise's personal stunt double for the past, 11 years. He's done all the movies that Tom Cruise has done. You remember when Tom Cruise was on the side of the plane for that one shot?
Right.
Chris tested that out first. So there's a shot of Chris doing it too. So, but to give Tom credit, every stunt you see on screen is Tom doing it. His stunt team will test everything out to make sure it's safe and ready to go for camera. But Tom will test it out too. And then Tom will actually do it. The guy learned how to fly a freaking helicopter for that one scene, doing these crazy twists. So yeah, man, there's no actor out there like Tom Cruise that can do or has done what Tom Cruise has done. So A+ badass as far as performance skills, man. Can't complain about Tom Cruise for sure.
It's humbling to see.
Oh, dude, huge, man. Absolutely.
Brother, I appreciate you coming onto the show. It means the world to me.
My pleasure, man. It was a blast.
My dreams of having a stuntman on here. And like, you really you taught me a lot. There's a lot I didn't know before this conversation.
Right
and
on.
I
Awesome.
want people to know what you guys do, because you guys really rack up those injuries doing it. And I'm talking to the Emmys now. You guys need to get an award.
Oh, dude, and hopefully sometime, man. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen, but hey.
Is there where can everybody follow you?
I only have one social media, Jay Belsky, Jaybellski. It's just Jay Belsky. I'm not like, I'll post stuff on there. Like sometimes I'll post stunts or, some music that I've done. But I don't have like Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. So if anyone wants to reach out or whatever, that's where they can find me.
Awesome.
Yeah, bro.
Well, brother, I appreciate you showing up. This has
Absolutely.
And maybe we can do another episode someday.
Absolutely, man. Always around for sure. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate that. That was fun.
I appreciate your time, brother. Thank you very much.
Everyone's